The man who jumped off a bridge near Herman last week to avoid an aggressive driver talks about waiting for more than half a day for help.
Don't panic, stay calm. What's the next thing?
How his role as a martial arts instructor was key to his survival.
Nice blue skies now. Did have one quick rain shower come through earlier, plus a look ahead at when our next rain could be.
Moving tributes in Colombia and Fulton celebrate a lifetime since the daring Allied invasion of France that ultimately led to a victory over tyranny in the middle of the 20th century.
It was simultaneously awful and miraculous what happened at D-Day.
And in France, a gathering honors the few and proud members of the greatest generation still living.
At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
In memory of those who fought here, died here, literally saved the world here. Let us be worthy of their sacrifice.
Good evening. The Boone County Fire Protection District's mourning the loss of one of its own. Assistant Chief Matt Tobin died this morning helping a Columbia firefighter rescue two people threatened by high water. It was in Bear Creek under a bridge along Rangeline Street. Following an afternoon press conference, we now know details about the circumstances of Tobin's death.
He has been deployed to disasters all over this country and the state of Missouri. He's a 19-year veteran of the Union Fire Department in Union, Missouri, and had just recently got hired here to be our training chief.
The call for a water rescue in the early and still dark hours of Monday morning ended with 2 lives saved and 1 lost. Fire Chief Scott Olson says Matt Tobin and a Columbia firefighter took a lightweight inflatable boat with a motor attached into the water to rescue 2 people stranded by high water. The people who needed rescuing were loaded into the boat and on the way back to safety when something went wrong.
They called out a mayday for the boat had lost power. So when they lost power, they called for the mayday. As the boat was then being carried downstream is when it capsized, and all 4 occupants of the boat were thrown out at that point. Chief Tobin never did resurface once he was thrown out. He did make one attempt to grab a tow line, but after that he was not seen again.
The other 3 occupants of the boat were re-rescued. Blumenkamp says Tobin was wearing a life jacket and helmet during the rescue, but both items were recovered separately from his body. Blumenkamp calls the impact of Tobin's career immeasurable.
He'd do anything for you. All you had to do was ask, and he was always willing to help. Never turned down the opportunity to run that call, to make that rescue, to be involved, to go in the fire on the hose line. He just never hesitated.
Last week, Tobin was a key figure in the successful rescue of a man who was trapped in a vehicle by high water last Wednesday on Gillespie Bridge Road.
He actually walked out to where the vehicle was and was able to secure the driver and the person that went out to help him, the civilian that went out to help him.
In that incident, a woman was unable to be pulled from the vehicle before it was swept away. Her death, coupled with Tobin's death, makes for 2 floodwater drowning deaths in less than a week. Blumenkamp adds that although the death of a civilian and a rescuer in such a close time frame is unsettling, his agency is always at the ready.
We could be doing the same situation, the same type of rescues again tomorrow, and hopefully we have a much better outcome.
New post-debate polling finds Donald Trump leading President Biden in 4 out of 7 key states. Trump is ahead in Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, and North Carolina. In Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, the race is within the margin of error with no clear leader. Overall, the new polling shows Biden generally faring worse than in the spring. The polling was done after the presidential debate, but before the shooting at Trump's Pennsylvania rally.
You're joining us following CBS's special coverage of a verdict issued against former President Donald Trump in a New York State criminal trial. The 12-person jury in Manhattan finds the
45th President of the United States and presumptive Republican nominee, guilty of 34 felony charges of falsifying business records related to hush money payments before the 2016 election. Leaving the courtroom, he repeatedly called the proceedings rigged and disgraceful, then promised things are not over.
The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people.
How the verdict will impact the presidential election this November remains to be seen, but most voters say it won't change their minds. According to a new NPR PBS NewsHour Marist poll, 67% of registered voters say a guilty verdict does not make a difference in their vote. 76% say the same about a not guilty verdict. And the verdict in this hush money case marks just one criminal trial the former president faces. Donald Trump is charged with scheming to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia. That trial has not been scheduled. He also faces federal charges for the same thing. That trial has been delayed. Trump faces federal charges for allegedly hoarding classified documents after he left the White House. That trial also delayed, this time indefinitely. This case could be the only one to go to trial before the November election. The main reason behind the delays of former President Trump's criminal trial is because a central matter still lies before the Supreme Court: presidential immunity. Justices heard arguments on the issue in April. It's unclear when they'll rule on it, but a decision could include sending the cases back to lower courts. That would probably delay them past the November election. Legal experts say the former president will have 30 days to state in writing he intends to appeal. Then he will have several more months to file his actual appeal. His sentencing is scheduled for July 11th, 4 days before the Republican National Convention begins in Milwaukee.
A news conference this afternoon, the family of missing Mizzou student Riley Strain announced the United Cajun Navy now plans to spearhead a water and land search in Nashville in coordination with other investigating agencies.
We feel that we need the extra resources to come in and help us as we try to get more organized for our family and see if we can't bring some more clues to light.
It has been 11 days since the 22-year-old college senior was last seen in the downtown area of Nashville that borders the Cumberland River. The Cajun Navy is an organization of volunteers who assist in the aftermath of natural disasters. They rose to notoriety in the wake of the Bush administration's haphazard response to Hurricane Katrina. National Director of Operations David Flagg says the UCN has been aware of the search for Strain since it kicked into high gear on Monday of last week. Since then, Strain's disappearance has attracted national attention. On Sunday, unsupervised volunteers combing the riverbank found Strain's bank card. The family says a point person in charge of everyone involved in the search on land and water is what was needed.
It's been hard being from out of town, being from 6.5 hours away, to put a structured program together when you don't know everywhere that you're at. You don't know the lay of the land as well. You don't have your family and your resources that are in your hometown to be able to help guide you and lean on to build a organized search. And that has bothered us, and Dave is our answer.
Flagg is a former Pennsylvania state trooper. He says he has full confidence in the Metro Nashville Police investigators team.
And I know that they have been making every effort that they can to bring this investigation, this search to a close.
Flagg says an initial scan of the riverbank along the Cumberland has already revealed a traditional line search with canines won't be of much use.
The plan right now is very loose and informal, and probably about the only way that we're really going to effectively be able to do this is put people in 2s and 3s, potentially 4s. We are working on getting some supplies.
Two investigators with the Metro Nashville Police Department were with Flagg and the Strange this afternoon. They offered an explanation as to why police decided yesterday to make body camera footage public. Sergeant Robert Nielsen says the series of tips coming to his and other desks reported Riley was injured, being chased, or running from someone in the night that he disappeared. Officer Young's body cam footage directly proves otherwise.
Well, the Columbia Police Department has released more information regarding the officer-involved shooting of Kaylin Jacobs.
This comes in the wake of family members of Jacobs and police accountability advocates expressing concerns about the circumstances that led to his death.
We recognize the loss suffered by the family and friends of Kaylin Jacobs. Although an explanation of the events surrounding his death may not bring comfort, it is our hope that it will provide context and answer questions.
This video shows in close detail what happened when CPD officers responded to a shooting outside the Vibes nightclub on North 5th Street in the early hours of November 14th of 2021. Stevens says a number of officers were in the downtown area managing crowds and monitoring overall safety when shots started. This is dash cam footage police say shows Jacobs firing a gun into a crowd running down the block. Watch carefully and you can see what looks like small bursts of light as that weapon is fired. The video we're about to show you now is not suitable for all viewers and it may be upsetting to see.
That's right. We're about to play a portion of the interaction between Jacobs and CPD leading up to his shooting death. This is body camera footage from the first responding officer. It shows the officer in pursuit of Jacobs as he runs into an alley next to Plaza Tire Services. Jacobs falls to the ground, still on the ground. He turns to face the officer with a gun in hand. Jacobs races his arm towards the officer yards behind him. That's when the first officer on scene and another who just arrived shot Jacobs.
After the officers fired, they had another officer bring a ballistic shield that was used to approach Mr. Jacobs and take his weapon from his hand.
Secure that, secure that. Secure it!
Well, Jacobs died at the scene. The 5 people who were shot when the gunfight started all survived. The results of Missouri State Highway Patrol investigation into the officer-involved shooting were handed over to a special prosecutor. He chose not to file charges against either officer.
Stevens also addressed the department's body-worn camera policies. Concerns were raised last month about that subject after an open records request revealed the 2 officers who shot and killed Jacobs may have violated policy and procedure.
While officers did not immediately activate their body-worn cameras, they did activate them in a reasonable time during the active shooter incident, resulting in the entire incident being caught on body-worn camera.
This Columbia man, Todd Nesbitt, was arrested and charged for his involvement in the shooting. According to court documents, he pleaded guilty to a charge of resisting or interfering with a felony arrest. Last July, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison.
A couple that once lived in Jefferson City is riding out Hurricane Ian tonight in their newly constructed home in Naples, Florida. John and Sarah Ferrer moved south earlier this year and decided this week not to evacuate.
We moved in April, so we were very fortunate that it's built to the new hurricane standards and a lot safer than homes built, let's say, back in the 90s, not that long ago, before they really toughened up on standards. And we did add the hurricane screens and the generator so that we would be as well prepared as possible.
This is footage of the outside of the Ferrer's house. Hurricane Ian came ashore just 2 miles per hour short of being a Category 5 storm. According to the National Weather Service, only 4 hurricanes have hit land harder than Ian. Ferrer says he's unsure how long he and his family will have to stay put. And take a look at this. It is the situation inside a fire station in Naples earlier today. As you can see, the garage level of the building is swamped with water. It almost covers the tires on the trucks and ambulances and comes up above the knees of most of the firefighters and paramedics on duty. Outside the station, the water was even higher. As you can see in this part of the video, it comes up to one firefighter's chest. This truck ended up outside after the fire chief noticed smoke billowing from the engine block. As a precaution, firefighters pushed the truck out of the building, then carried loads of equipment that they might need back into the station. Now I want to check in with Zach Paul, who has been tracking the latest with Ian. Zach, what are the current stats on this storm and where is it heading?
Well, right now, be able to, before we even get to that, found a couple of the sky cams. Luckily, we got a pretty good network. And
inflation continues to hit Americans in their wallets. Consumer prices surged 8.6% in May, year over year, which is more than April and more than analysts projected. Prices jumped 1% from April to May alone because of huge gas price increases. At the same time, this is expected to be the busiest summer travel season in years. But as prices soar for just about everything, travelers are getting hit with higher than expected costs. And KRCG 13's Grant Palmer joins us to take a look at some of those numbers and offer advice on how to navigate the sticker shock.
Elise, more than 70% of Americans say they plan on taking at least one trip this summer. That's despite gas prices creeping towards a once unimaginable $5 per gallon. The expected surge in travel demand paired with increasing costs means prices are being passed on to customers. That's probably why nearly 43% of Americans say economic concerns are prompting them to reduce travel or cut their vacation budget. Take a look at these numbers. Domestic airfare is costing 34% more than 2019. Airbnb prices are up over 11% this year. The average hotel room cost runs close to $171 a night in May. That's $40 more than a year ago. NerdWallet's research finds it's also costing more to do things on the way to or after arriving at your destination. Eating out costs 7.2% more than it did last year. Tickets for movies, theaters, and concerts up nearly 6%. So, what can you do? Well, for starters, create a vacation budget and actually stick with it. Financial expert Jolly Alma Tavares recommends prioritizing activities on your trip.
If you're spending $300-400 on extracurriculars, maybe those are the things that you want to reduce so that you can make up for the expenses that we cannot control that definitely are going up in price.
Consider a group vacation to split those high prices with friends or family. Book early and be flexible on your travel dates and times.
Missouri's nickname is the Show Me State, but it could have been the Shoe Me State, Tony.
What could have been? Dick Preston telling us all about that in trivia this morning. That's right after the break. Stay with us.